Welcome to This Week in Washington for December the 2nd, 2011. I should let you know that this is my fourth attempt today to record this message because they've all been too long. So this is going to be a lot faster and shorter than the other three that I've tried. First off, this was a very busy week in Washington. As you know, the House of Representatives has postponed dealing with the transportation reauthorization until next year. In his announcement, Chairman Micah said that he looked forward to completing this by March 31st of next year. I personally think this is going to be a very difficult thing in light of the fact that next year is an election year and the political situation here remains as volatile now as it did several months ago. So I don't see how that's going to change. And in addition to that, Congress is also looking forward to a congressional session next year that will be one of the shortest in history. Consequently, it's hard to understand how there will be enough time to actually hold a reauthorization in both the Senate and the House, deal with the amendments that will be coming forward, and reconcile that in a way that will be acceptable to the President. The primary problem remains as it has in the last several years. There is no one who has a revenue plan to pay for the current program, let alone pay for the program the nation needs. This week I also undertook some education of my own on the reauthorization plan, and our plan, that is, by meeting with FTA Administrator Rogoff. As you remember at our last meeting, I said I would be meeting with him to talk about our reauthorization ideas and concepts and to find out which ones he could support. I also included in my note to him a request to talk to him about the need for operating assistance as it relates to our role in the Operating Assistance Alliance. Mr. Rogoff was kind enough to convene a rather large gathering for our meeting that included not only him, but his deputy Teresa. It also included Matt Welbus, who is the executive director of the FTA, Rich Steinman, who handles their legislative affairs, and our old friend Mary Martha Churchman, who from time to time seems to be assigned the CTAA portfolio at the FTA. We talked about the 2013 situation with the across-the-board budget cuts that are being planned since Congress failed to enact a deficit reduction program. The FTA has been told that in 2013 they could expect a 50% reduction in federal funds for transit. Obviously, we spoke about how difficult this would be, especially in light of when we in fact needed a greater investment. Unfortunately, all of that information and dealing with the 2013 situation will not really take place until after the election, which of course means that it would be the subject to some discussion next year during the congressional session, making our road a little bit more difficult. But I think that we're going to have to wait a little bit on that to see what the outcome of the political situation is going to be, especially as it relates to the elections. The other issues I spoke to Peter and his team about, some of them included the proposed regulations on civil rights and environmental justice. It is my position, and the position of many of you, that it is very difficult for us to meet the goals of Title VI and the environmental justice provisions that are outlined in the circulars if in fact we have less funding. And since the FTA has spoken about the need to hold the line on operating cost, especially in the large urbanized areas, it seems even more problematic how you can prevent the loss of services to people who are economically challenged if we don't have additional flexible funding to help them keep fares low or to keep services in place. And speaking of fares, rising fares, at least from our perspective, are one of the biggest barriers to achieving environmental justice. And I spoke about several people that have come forward and contacted us from around the country who are working now part-time at minimum wage, unable to afford buying bus passes in their communities. To me, these regulations don't give us the flexibility to find revenue within the FTA programs or a commitment to new revenue to maintain these services. That's what our struggle about operating costs is all about. The other thing about the circular I pointed out, and I think I pointed it out nicely, was that our industry, especially our members, have excellent records in providing services to those who are protected by Title VI, as well as people who are economically and physically challenged when it comes to utilization and access to public transportation. I reminded the administrator that unlike other organizations, CTAA is deeply rooted in the history of the Civil Rights Act because one of our founders, Aaron Henry, was a national leader in civil rights. And from our very beginnings, we have always been for equal access and equal opportunities for all Americans, and we have always understood the important role that public and community transportation makes for making civil rights, economic justice, and the ADA a reality every day for millions and millions of people. I expressed the concerns I also put forward in our editorial that was recently on our website. We are soon to enter the 50th anniversary of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, and as we do, we must have a bold, vigorous commitment to public and community transportation if we are to live up to every possible aspect of that important legislation. And that I hope that this administration, since it is also an administration that is related directly to the Democrats who founded these landmark legislation and legislative goals, would be standing with us asking for the kind of revenue we needed to make that dream a continuing reality for all Americans. I think Administrator Rogoff understood that at the end of our conversation, and he invited us to make individual comments on the regulations that are out there, especially issues and problems that you have individually with some of the proposals that are in there. Now, some people have given me some specific issues about the regulations, which I took up as well at the meeting, and they'll be getting some things back from me. But as you know, Administrator Rogoff from time to time has referred to me as your, quote, hired gun, unquote, and asked that I ask you to please send in comments that you had specifically, individually, under your name about issues that you were uncomfortable with in the civil rights or environmental justice provisions that are being put forward in the regulations. He wanted you to know that it was really an attempt by them to try to bring together many divergent pieces of rules and regulations and to make things simpler. But he also understood that things that sometimes are designed to be simpler often become complex. So I would urge you to think about looking at those regulations. We'll be putting some more things out about them, and to try to respond and attend the meetings that are being held around the country to discuss them further. Beyond that, Administrator Rogoff remains a good partner for our association. They are undertaking a number of other issues with us. They especially were pleased with our role in the veterans work that's going on. As you saw last week, we published a discussion about our role in supporting veterans and how public transit agencies have supported veterans for an awfully long time. I also pointed out we'd be releasing a news story about dialysis, which also shows how our people and our industry have always been leaders in providing important healthcare services. And now, just like in the Veterans Program, we need additional help. And we need help not just financially, but we need the kind of help Pete can give us politically and in the halls of the administration to make our work better for those we want to help in the years ahead. So that's the end of that busy week. Keep looking forward to some things that will be coming out on our communications system in fast mail and otherwise. In the meantime, drop me a note if there's anything I can do or you want to know further about. Have a good weekend and have a really great day. Bye for now.